around him.
Good evening, you all, and welcome to another Live with Dr. Dawn. I'm your host, Dr. 𝗿𝗵𝐿𝐼. I'm a double board certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, a two-time best-selling author, podcaster, producer, public speaker, and media influencer. I'm the sole practitioner of 𝗿𝗍 Wellness Center in Houston, Texas, and I welcome you back to another live episode. Listen, before we get into it, you know I'm going to ask you if you're a loyalist of Dr. Dawn. Go ahead and share this. Share this with at least two people you know, all right? Listen, I've been waiting for this conversation. One of my good friends is here, and she is about to drop some gems, some knowledge on you all. So go ahead, get right to it. And I appreciate you all looking at me from YouTube, from the Dr. Dawn Psych MD page, as well as the 𝗿𝗍𝙗 Brasco page. So I know of everyone in one spot. Go ahead and share this, and we're going to get right on to it. So tonight is another live episode, and it's another good topic. Tonight's discussion is going to be dealing with an analysis of Mammy, Sapphire, Jezebel, and the bad girls of reality TV. Media representations of Black women. All right, so this is going to be a great topic, a great discussion, and I have none other than my friend here, who is a neonatologist and a pediatrician. Dr. Terri Major-Kincade is in the building. She is here, and I'm going to bring her up on the screen so everyone can see you. Hi, Dr. Terri.
Hey, Dr. Dawn. I'm so excited to be here. I have been waiting all year for this conversation as well. So I'm super, super excited. I can't wait to share with your audience. This is so important, such an important topic.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, I'm going to ask you, how much time do you have? Because when I went to Dr. Dre's Momentum in Medicine conference this year, and you had presented a little bit on this topic, I was like this the whole entire time, just listening. And it inspired me. And I actually gave a later presentation on this topic as well. So you were very inspiring, Dr. Terri, the wealth of knowledge that you possess. I mean, listen, y'all going to see this. You're going to hear from her. You may want to get some notepads and a pen out and take notes, because Dr. Terri's about to drop some knowledge on you all tonight. But before we get that going, Dr. Terri, please go ahead and formally introduce yourself. Tell the audience who you are, where you're from, and what you do, and share a fun fact about yourself.
All righty. Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Terri Major-Kincade. I am based here in Dallas. I'm a double board certified neonatologist and pediatrician, and I specialize in giving families, patients, sisters, friends the gift of hope. And I'm able to do that through my speaking engagements, my books, my webinars, and my courses. I'm also a wife of 26 years. Yay, this year. And I'm proud mommy to two amazing children, a son and a daughter, who are both in college and vet school right now. But most importantly, you guys, I want you to know that I am a Black woman. I'm a Black woman. You can see that, right? I'm a Black woman navigating challenges every day. So even though I'm 21 years into my field, 21 years into my area of expertise, I'm still navigating many of the challenges that we're going to talk about tonight. And the reason it's near and dear to me is in my roles outside of the hospital, I serve on several national boards. And so one of those is the board for 𝗿𝗏𝗏. It's the Perinatal Loss and Infant Death Alliance, where I teach on health disparities related to Black women and minorities. And I also serve on the Return to Zero board, which is a national organization that supports families experiencing loss. And I also help them focus their efforts on areas for marginalized communities who have disparities, who experience increased loss. So for Black women, as you guys know, we're 2 times more likely to have a preterm birth and 4 to 5 times more likely to die in pregnancy. And those numbers haven't changed in 40 years. They've actually gotten worse. And so that is really what brings me to our conversation tonight. Why do we have these issues? And how does being the Black superwoman intersect with these issues? If you guys want to find me or learn more about these issues, you can find me at my website, Dr. Terri MD, 𝗿𝗍𝗆𝗆.com, or on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Same thing, Dr. Terri MD, 𝗿𝗍𝗆𝗆𝗆. And then on Instagram, I had to change it up just a little. It's Dr. spelled out, DOCTOR, Terri MD. And so a fun fact about me is I'm from Louisiana. That's always fun. So my entire family's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My name is Major-Kincade, but I'm not in the Army. People always ask about that. And I was the first doctor in the family. My dad asked me to keep Major. So I did. So, and then I have 2 books. I'm also a 2-time best-selling author. I have one for parents of preemies. It's called Early Arrival. I don't know if you guys can see it, but 9 things parents need to know about life in the ICU nursery. This is a book that a mom who has a baby coming to the ICU nursery could read really in 2 hours at the moment that she finds out her life is going to change. And I have another book that is relevant to tonight, Chicken Soup for the Soul Power Moms. And I have a story in that book about my challenges with trying to be a superwoman, and how that affected my marriage and my journey with my children. And so we're going to talk about that, how being a superwoman can fall apart, particularly for Black women. So all of those things are near and dear to my heart. And my favorite dessert is creme brulee. So if anybody's listening who can make creme brulee, then, go ahead and message me and I can come by and get some.
Dr. Terri, thank you so much. Well accomplished African-American woman, power woman, doing it all, but have learned how to balance everything. You're just a gift to us, and we really appreciate you being here tonight. Listen, again, I couldn't wait to us having this discussion. I would like to start wherever you would like to start, Dr. Terri. So you just let me know, and if you want to start off by, where do you want to start? Let's go there.
I want to do to center the audience. So tonight, friends, we're going to be having a conversation about stereotypes that we see in the media and how those stereotypes manifest consciously as well as subconsciously and affect our physical and mental health for those of us that are Black women. And for those of us in the audience who are friends with Black women, who are colleagues with Black women, who work with who care for Black women, this is particularly important, how these stereotypes creep into medicine and continue to create biases and disparities in the way we take care of persons of color. So I want to start with a poem called Strong Black Woman. Strong Black Woman. So I'm going to start with that. So everybody, Dr. Don said, go ahead and get your pen and paper. I say get your pen and paper and tissue if you need to, because we're going to have a real conversation about being vulnerable, about some of these stereotypes and how they affect our challenges with navigating life, including me. So the strong Black woman. While struggling with the reality of being a human instead of a myth, the strong Black woman passed away. Medical sources say she died of natural causes, but those who know her know she died from being silent when she should have been screaming, smiling when she should have been raging, from being sick and not wanting anyone to know because her pain might inconvenience them. She died from an overdose of other people clinging to her when she didn't even have the energy for herself. The strong Black woman. I want you guys to think about that as we navigate these different stereotypes and how that manifests in these different stereotypes. So the first stereotype we're going to address is Mammy, the Mammy stereotype. And you guys are probably thinking, oh yeah, the Mammy stereotype. I remember a couple of weeks ago, they said they were going to just take Aunt Jemima off the box totally. But you know what? She can be off the box. She needs to be out of our minds. She needs to be out of our minds. So where does the Mammy stereotype come from? So we know that the Mammy stereotype is invested in the historical legacy of slavery. And who do we think of when we think of the Mammy stereotype? We usually think of a larger Black woman. She usually has her head covered because the head covering represents covering up her naturally curly or kinky hair. She's usually a large woman, usually a full bosom woman, which is supposed to indicate she has enough there to nurture all the children of the world, the master's children, her children, everybody's children. She's subservient. She's there to serve. She's dependable. She does not embody physical attractiveness. She doesn't embody anything associated with sexuality or femininity. She's there to serve. She's the nurturer. So the larger Black woman with the head wrapped, the nurturer, the big bosom. That is where the Mammy stereotype comes from. And often in my life, when I meet persons of color who are trying to, persons who are not of color, who are trying to explain to me their journey with people of color and why they may or may not be racist, they'll say, oh, Miss So-and-so took care of us. Miss So-and-so raised us. She raised 2 generations of my family. She raised 3 generations of my family. She raised 4 generations of my family. Actually, when my great aunt died, there was a family that spoke at her funeral. She had taken care of 4 generations of their children. 4 generations of their children. They were the only Caucasian family in the church. It was actually a beautiful testament. But what I want to say to people who have those stories, when we hear those stories, that's a woman who sacrificed her own family to take care of your family. She sacrificed herself because she had to. She had to do what was necessary. So the Mammy stereotype comes from that legacy of the nurturer. So what does the Mammy stereotype look like today? What does it look like today? So I had us read The Strong Black Woman, and I had us read it before we talked about the Mammy stereotype. I want you guys to make the connection. So the eternal nurturer, all things to all people, that has manifested into the strong Black woman. So we left the parts that were unattractive. You know, we're strong, we're vibrant, we have it together, we can do it all. Look at me, I'm super bad. I'm so super bad, I don't need anybody. I'm super bad 24/7. I can do it all. So the strong Black woman, if you actually look up that, it's actually researchers who coined that term, they coined it as one single word, not even 3 separate words. Strong Black woman. Strong Black woman. So we've become this entity that's one thing. So what are the 3 things that make the strong Black woman? So we already said she's a nurturer. She's a nurturer. She's independent, and she shows no vulnerability. She shows no vulnerability. Okay, so what does that look like? The person who shows no vulnerability. She's the multitasker. She's taking care of the people at the job. She's taking care of the people at home. She's taking care of mama. She's taking care of everybody at the church. She's taking care of everybody except herself. Except herself. And I often hear people say to me, they say, do you ever get tired of being strong? Do we even have spaces where we can't be strong? Do we have spaces that we can be vulnerable? So if we've those of us who've internalized the self-sacrificing Mammy, those of us women of color, Black women who sacrifice who have internalized the self-sacrificing Mammy, what it means is I am gonna deny myself to take care of everybody. I am not going to take time for myself. I don't have time to take too many people are counting on me. Too many people. When George Floyd died, I said to one of my colleagues, when George Floyd died, it wasn't just a loss for his family. It was a loss for the family of every person of color that's here. When he called for his mom, we heard the call for all of our moms, and we did not have time to exhale. We had to keep it moving. We had to keep it moving. We have to keep it moving to build resilience. So what is the legacy of being the strong Black woman? What is that legacy if I don't have spaces to be vulnerable? Can we be strong? Yes. Can we be strong? But you know what? We need to be human. So when I talk about the strong Black woman, I like to use the example of Wakanda and the Black Panther. Wakanda, I mean, the Warriors were bad. I mean, that was a good year. If you were a person of a color, when Black Panther came out, you were like, take me now.
Right.
I'm ready. Let's go. If Wakanda, they didn't have the issues of sexism there. They didn't have the issues of classism there. They didn't have the issues of racism there. The women were in positions of power and very strong, equal footing, seen as very smart, not having to be subservient to elevate someone else, not being labeled with different stereotypes. But you guys, Wakanda was a fictional place. In Wakanda, they didn't have maternal mortality there. People weren't dying at 4 to 5 times the rates of others. And Wakanda, people wasn't losing their babies at twice the rate of other places. Wakanda didn't have zip codes where people were dying at 10 times the rate of other zip codes. In Wakanda, having a college degree did not increase your risk for a poor outcome. We're not in Wakanda. We're real people. We're human. We're flesh. And we have to be able to have safe spaces, we, women of color, to say, you know what, I am a nurturer. And I am going to be there for my family. I am going to be there for my sister. I am going to be there for my brother. I am going to be there for them. But you know what? I'm going to be there for me first. I'm going to be there for me first. So that's the first point I want to make, is that the Mammy stereotype is manifested today in the strong Black woman complex. And when you hear researchers say Black women are more resilient, you know, in our study, they didn't use a lot of the support networks. They didn't use a lot of support resources. I read a lot of research where people will say the Black women did not come to support groups after they lost their baby, because they're so strong. They're so resilient. Do not use our coping skills as a reason to justify not changing systemic policies that support systemic racism. Do not use our coping skills. We cannot change being Black women. I can't change being a Black woman. I mean, I'm 52. I've been a Black woman my whole life. I'm pretty sure I will continue to be a Black woman. But we can change the systems that intersect with Black women and require them to be strong to survive the system that we're sending them to. I had a mentor say, you know what? A mentor who's in his 60s now. He said, he was the first Black male in his medical school. There were 7 of them. Only 2 of them graduated. He said, I had to be resilient then. I was the first. I have taught my children to be resilient. They are teaching their children to be resilient. I hope the grandkids of the grandkids can navigate a world where we don't have to empower them to be disenfranchised. So when we say strong Black woman, it's really a kind of backhanded compliment, saying to people to rationalize what we've had to do to survive. So yes, we are strong, but we want to remember we're human. So it's fact and fiction. It's fact and fiction. It's myth and a legend. So we want to make sure that we are not manifesting what we saw in that poem, being there for everyone, so we cannot be there for ourselves. And some of the coping mechanisms, if we don't have safe spaces to express our vulnerability, some of our coping mechanisms can be not taking care of ourselves, not getting enough exercise, binge eating. You guys, I actually had my well woman visit I had this week. Y'all, when I called to make the appointment, they said I had not been there in 2 years. They said I had not been in 2 years. I actually argued with the secretary and said, you know what, I know the charge nurse in the office. I know the manager for the office. I'm like, just put her on, because I know that's not right.
Right.
When they came up, they were like, Dr. Kincade, you haven't been here in 2 years. You canceled 3 times and you never rescheduled. You guys, I started crying, because that's not okay. I mean, that is not okay. I have to be there for me. Now, I did get my mammogram, but Lord, what about the rest of my body? Okay, so we need to make sure we are taking care of ourselves. You guys, we have to take care of ourselves. It's very easy not to take care of ourselves, and we have to be okay being vulnerable. And at the end, Dr. Dawn and I are going to talk a little bit about some techniques you guys can use to do some self-care. So first stereotype, Mammy. So they can take Aunt Jemima off the box. They took her hair bandana off, but we need to make sure we're not expecting women to continue to be mammies, nurturers, and we need to make sure that women are okay saying no to us. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to take care of ourselves. So that's the eternal nurturer, the Mammy. So the next stereotype we're going to talk about is Sapphire. Sapphire. Now, any person of color that's navigating corporate spaces, or even if you're not navigating corporate space, if you're navigating any space in your skin as a Black woman, then you know what I mean when I start talking about Sapphire. So those of you who may be a little older may remember the show Amos and Andy, and there was a character on the Amos and Andy show named Sapphire, and Sapphire was sassy. She was sassy. She smacked her lips. She's snapped her thumbs. She constantly talked down to the husband. She was nagging. She was constantly nagging. She was demeaning. She was emasculating. So she was a character on the show who was angry, emasculating, talked down to the husband. That's who Sapphire was. So Sapphire, eventually people began to complain about Sapphire and the image that presented for Black women. But did Sapphire go away? I don't think Sapphire went away. Sapphire did not go away. So today when we see Sapphire, Sapphire is the angry Black woman. Sapphire's the angry Black woman. Well, where do we see her? She's glamorized on reality TV. People love to look on reality TV. They love to look on reality TV and see us fighting and pulling out the hair. And they have the clips after the show when the camera was supposed to be off, but really the camera was on. They have the clips before the show. Even on Married to Medicine, when we have women of color, you know, who are physicians, they have clips of us being angry Black women and attacking each other. They want to see that. People want to see that. They want to glamorize that. Well, where else do we see the sassy Black woman being glamorized? We see her in 𝗪𝗫. She's sassy. She talks down to the men. She talks down to the kids. She backslaps the judge. She doesn't respect authority. We saw her in 𝗪𝗫. We saw her in Martin Lawrence's movie as well, Big Mama. We see her. So what does that tell the public about us? It tells us two things. One, the angry Black woman can't be taken seriously. She's out of control, or she's a joke. Either way, she doesn't receive validation from me. Even though the amount of those images are small compared to the number of professional women of color every day who are not that. That stereotype is out there, which assumes that we are that. So how does that manifest at work? Y'all know how it manifests at work. How does it manifest at work? Something happens. It's obviously disrespectful. It's obviously not standard. It's obviously not the way I see other colleagues being treated or having interactions with. Well, what are we supposed to do? What am I supposed to do so that those who are not persons of color feel comfortable around me? How can I respond to legitimate instances where I may have been disrespected or something is just not right? How can I respond to that legitimately without being labeled the angry Black woman? So this is something that any woman of color knows. We have to navigate spaces very carefully. We have to balance between expressing the emotion and, like, you know what, I'm just got to be Sapphire today because this is not okay. It's not okay. I mean, sometimes, like, I mean, literally, I'll come out crying like, okay, I lost it today. I was Sapphire today, but but the problem is we don't get a lot of times to be Sapphire because many of us in spaces where we're penalized for behaviors where other people will be acknowledged as having strong leadership skills. Other persons may be called assertive, but me, I'm the angry Black woman. I see it with my patients. I have patients that have legitimate concerns about the way their children are being cared for, legitimate things that may have been missed. And staff will make comments about those persons that they will not make about other persons who have the same concerns. Other persons actually may call the CEO of the hospital and have a meeting, but they're not going to be labeled an angry person acting out of normal. I had a nurse tell me recently after a mom's grief seemed to be over the top, that she felt like the mom may have some mental issues because of the way her grief was. It was a mom of color. I mean, who am I to determine how somebody's grief should be manifested?
My God.
I would never. So angry Black woman. So you guys, when you think of Sapphire, I want us to think of a scale that we're balancing. How much is okay to be angry? How much is it okay to assert? How much is it okay to be angry? How much is it okay to be assertive? And when is it okay? I mean, we can have legitimate anger. We should be able to have legitimate anger, but we don't have spaces where we can. We don't have spaces where we can. When George Floyd died, I had to go to work the next day. I was barely keeping it together. Barely. Not one person the entire day that I worked with asked me if I was okay. Because we're expected to see people that look like us killed every day in the media and not be angry about it. Mm-hmm. We're expected to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. But you know what happens if we are angry and we don't play our role? You get dragged out of the car like Sandra Bland.
Right.
So we all understand I gotta play my role. I gotta stay in my lane. Because if I become too much and someone is threatened, the the way the officer was with Sandra Bland, I didn't share that. I went to Prairie View. So that story is very near and dear to me. What did he say to her? I will light you up.
Mm-hmm.
I will light you up. And she was merely saying, you know, why did you pull me? Really? Is this what you're doing? But don't start smacking your lips too much. Don't start snapping. Don't get too sassy, because we have to know our place. So the Sapphire stereotype is not gone, but it manifests when we question, okay, I don't want them to think I'm the angry Black woman. I'm in several groups with women that are physicians, and I have several friends that are professional careers. And I probably once a week have a conversation with somebody like, do you think this is okay? I mean, do you think this is going to be okay to say this in a way that I don't believe other people have to navigate?
Right.
I don't. So Sapphire is not gone. So Mammy's not gone. Sapphire is not gone. So we talked about the Mammy stereotype, that constant nurturer. How is she manifesting? She's manifesting as poor health outcomes for us. That's the legacy of us believing that we can be strong 24/7 and never take a break and never take care of ourselves. We literally can up and die trying to take care of people. We can. So how does the Sapphire stereotype? So it's not healthy to keep in anger.
Right.
It's not healthy. I mean, that is not normal. It is not normal to not have a constructive way to express frustration or to have a way to amicably discuss issues the way adults do. Adults should be able to amicably discuss issues. And if you're working at a place where your people are concerned about your success, they should be okay with you bringing these issues to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. I just saw a comment. Anne said she named her business Sapphire Medical, which was born from being interpreted. I get you, angry Black woman. So my Dr. Powell just reminded me. So my nickname is Dr. Boo. I'm called everybody Boo. That was a fun fact I should have shared. And creme brulee. So I called everybody Dr. Boo. I mean, everybody calls me Dr. Boo, and I call everybody else Boo. If you're from Louisiana, you probably have called somebody Boo at some point in your life. So I'm calling everybody Boo. I'm usually very happy, high energy person. I'm a glass full person. I try to be most of the time, but I'm still a human person. So at the time, whenever I have had to, yes, legitimate anger. So whenever I have had to have a conversation at work about a situation that needs to be addressed, people are always shocked. Oh my God, what's wrong with Dr. Boo? She wasn't being Dr. Boo today. She was, I don't know who that was. It was Sapphire Boo. Because I mean, sometimes you just have to. So people, I mean, this is my 21st year of practice, and it's very uncomfortable for people when I am not who I am 90% of the time. But Black women we're not unidimensional. We are multifaceted. We are multifaceted, complex people, and we are allowed to have the full range of emotions, not just the nurturer, not just the yes, okay, not just the, okay, I want to make sure you're comfortable. Allow us to be fully ourselves. We need to be fully ourselves so that we can be healthy. And while we're working on ourselves, we need to be in spaces where there are policies that are in place to make sure we have the resources and support we need so that we can continue to stay healthy. Okay, so Mammy, we talked about Mammy. We've talked about Sapphire. We talked a little bit about the angry girls of reality TV when we talked about the clips everyone likes to see. So now I want to talk about Jezebel. I want to talk about Jezebel. Let's talk about Jezebel. Oh, before we talk about Jezebel, we got to go back. Okay. One more thing about Sapphire. We have to say this because we said these stereotypes are rooted in the historical legacy of slavery. Okay. We said they're rooted in the historical legacy of slavery. So Sapphire is the antithesis of what was considered to be the epitome of womanhood during slavery. So who was the epitome of womanhood during slavery? It wasn't us. It's not us now. But it wasn't us then. So Caucasian women were the epitome of womanhood, and they were defined by subservience, being subservient, docile, feminine. Subservient, docile, and feminine. So what does Sapphire look like then? She was angry. She was the angry slave who did not take instruction from the master. But more importantly, she was sexualized to be more masculine. So she worked out in the fields alongside the men. She was strong like a horse. She was big, strong, worked in the fields like the men. So she's masculine. She's angry. She emasculates men. She doesn't respect men. She can work as hard as 2 or 3, 4 men. That's how they masculinize Sapphire. So she's angry, but she's also the antithesis of a sexual creature. She's the antithesis of somebody that's feminine. So Mammy was the antithesis. She's here to nurture me. That's it. Sapphire's here to work, and she's just angry because she doesn't appreciate how good she has it. That's who Sapphire is. And even today, just recently in the news, we heard one of the media share a story from one of the people, one of the politicians who said something about a woman not appreciating her place.
Yes.
A woman not appreciating her place. What does that mean? Didn't know your place. Because Sapphire knows her place. And Mammy knows her place too. So I just wanted to point that out, that she was masculinized and worked in the fields alongside the men. She was masculinized and worked in the fields alongside the men.
Would another representation be like from Precious, the movie Precious? Okay.
Yes. You're talking about the mom? Yeah. Yeah. That was such a hard movie. I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see that, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but if you're a single parent, a single mom, having to play both roles, having to, I see that more often when in Black women, right? Not a stereotype, but what I have to do in order for me and my children to survive and make it. I have to be this way. So therefore.
Yes, I agree. And I also want to say to that, she reminded me. So one of the things you read in the social science literature, there are 2 groups of social science literature about Black women who have had to carry the race and lead single parent households and take on all these roles. And so one group says that's because Black women have emasculated men because we're so strong and, we don't need a man, we don't need a partner, and I'm every woman and I can do everything. But the other camp acknowledges that Black women are in these spaces because we've had to be, because there have been policies in place, racist policies from the beginning that separated our families, broke up families, took our husbands, took our children. We have a school to prison pipeline system, where Black men are racially profiled and sent to prison, at astronomical rates compared to persons who are not Black men. People who are arrested for the same crimes, people who are arrested for major crimes who actually don't do any time. And so it's not that we got to this place without the help of racist policies that have been in place to do exactly what they were supposed to do. Exactly what they were supposed to do. So Sapphire. Okay, so then Jezebel. I want to talk a little bit about Jezebel. So Jezebel is the hypersexualized stereotype. Policies. That's right, Rachel. You got it. People don't want to talk about that. I just say go back and watch Ava DuVernay's movie. We didn't get here by ourselves. We didn't get here without help. Jim Crow helped. And all I mean, the prison helped. I mean, a lot of things are in place still today. The street fights, all
of those things. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're here because we've had to be. So it's another way to blame us for the resiliency in the systems that we find ourselves in, the places where we live, work, and play that were designed by people other than us. So Jezebel. Really bothers me. They all bother me, but Jezebel really bothers me. So Jezebel is this exotic, hypersexualized African-American woman. She's oversexed. She's hypersexed. She's a sex goddess. And so she also comes from the legacy of slavery. So when we got off the ships, when our ancestors were taken off the ships, what was the first thing that they did? Did they say, hey, how many people in your family? What room do you want to go to? How many rooms do you need? No. You went and stood on a box so you can be examined. Your teeth, your nose, your ears, your mouth. Men were examined for their sexual prowess, and guess what? Women were too. How wide are your hips? Are you going to be good for breeding? Are you going to be good for breeding like an animal? Very sexualized, which is so interesting to me, because once you get on the plantation, we're not good enough to be in the big house. Only some of us, we're only good enough to be in the fields, but we're good enough for master to come in at night and rape us. We're very rapeable. We were good enough for that, but we weren't good enough in the daytime to be seen for anything. Didn't even have the rights of the animals. We're just property, but we were good enough at night when master wanted to have fun. We were good enough at night when master wanted to explore something exotic. Jezebel. So did Jezebel go away? No. And unfortunately, we see Jezebel in the media everywhere, from Black and white representatives. So I'm going to start with the Black rap music industry. If you turn on a video and it's hardcore hip hop, it's very easy to see very sexualized women, dancing, butts jiggling, breast jiggling, and that's fine. To have butt and breast, we have our body types, that's fine. But the way we're hypersexualized is not fine. The way the men are treating the women in the video is not fine, as if we're just there for the sex and for their pleasure. So we have songs that celebrate that. We have videos that celebrate that. Those of you who may remember several years ago, Nelly had a video, with the credit cards, and I won't even talk about what he did with the ladies.
Sure.
So that was Jezebel to like the 100th degree.
Yes.
So the Jezebel is the hypersexualized. But what is the manifestation of that today? So we've said we see it in the media. We talked about Sapphire. We talked about Precious. We talked about emasculating men, talking to men crazy, like Big Mama, or women talking to everybody crazy. Mm-hmm. But what does Jezebel do to us? Was actually a lot, I feel, even more serious, because Jezebel implies that we at a baseline are hypersex. She implies that my baseline is that I need all of this sex. I need somebody to do things to me. And if something happened to me, then I probably ask for it. Mm-hmm. So how does that manifest? So if you actually look in the literature for women of color who've actually been raped, they don't want to always report. Rape victims in general don't want to report, but Black women have this double whammy of, well, you're seen as a hypersex. Yes, the tip drill video, Latricia. As hypersex. I didn't want to say it, Latricia, but yes. So we're seen as hypersex. So if you go and try to report, well, did you ask for it? Well, how are you dressed? Are you sure you didn't want it? Well, how do we know? Even the young man from Stanford who was behind the dumpster caught raping someone, Brock, they still victimized the lady, and he was caught in the act. So we're seeing, I actually saw that in the paper, rapeable. I mean, who wants to be rapeable? And does someone come out and say that? No, but it is in your subconscious. Is it in your subconscious? So Dr. Dawn kind of mentioned about the mantle that single women have to carry. And so one of the ways that this manifests, not necessarily for single women, but for women who may have had multiple children, who find themselves in the hospital, or women who may be of a certain SES status, there's actually studies to show, blinded studies to show that staff make predictions about women and how they found themselves in those circumstances before they apply the standard of care. So sometimes if you see a woman who's had multiple children, who may be a person of color, who's on public assistance, you think, well, this is her 7th or 8th kid. Does she really, is it okay if she lost it? Is it going to be a problem if she has lost this baby? Well, yes.
Exactly.
We'll need to provide the same standard of care. What does that have to do with anything?
Right.
Somebody who's had SCD, and people will make jokes on rounds about their promiscuity, that they will not make jokes about someone else. Okay, what does that have to do with me caring for the patient today? I'm here to care for the patient. I'm not here to make stories up about what I think about the life circumstances that brought them here. And that's actually not that uncommon. And actually a blinded study of medical students, they just actually put up pictures of women that were pregnant. Some were Black and some were white. And they asked them, okay, do you think this person has had multiple partners? Do you think this person has had STDs? Do you think this? And they actually made judgments just based on, with no history, just basically looking at the person and prove the hypothesis that we have these subconscious views about persons of color, that they are more likely to have multiple babies, that they're more likely to have the father not in the home, that they're more likely to be on public assistance and want to have children to stay on public assistance. Okay, what is that? And I know the general public may think that, but if you have taken the Hippocratic Oath, I need you not to think that. I need you to meet people where they are and take care of them. So Jezebel. So Jezebel, hypersexualized. It can manifest really in women being at increased risk for abuse or manipulation or taken advantage of, and not feeling they have a safe space to share that. Sapphire. Sapphire can manifest one of two ways. Either I dampen myself totally down, so I never express my views, or I just go all the way. So I have friends that say this. They go, you know what? They already know I'm loud. I'm not going to put up with it. Nobody even comes to say anything to me because they know I'm not the one. Okay, well, that may not be.
Girl. You know what I'm thinking.
It's great. But depending on where you're trying to, navigate in your career or your spaces,
Right.
It would be nice to have other coping mechanisms, right? We need to have a whole toolkit, not just the look. Y'all better get out my face. I'm not the one today. And not the, okay, do whatever y'all want. I ain't going to say nothing because I can't say nothing. We don't want either one of those, okay? So we want to have coping skills for all of those with respect to how these media representations and these subconscious views affect us as Black women, and those of us who are not Black women, how they may affect the way we interact or see people. So this can be very subconscious. So for those of you listening, if you hear strong Black woman, you probably don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? I mean, how can that be a bad thing? We're saying you have great strengths. We're saying you're resilient. I mean, how can that be bad? But can I have strength and vulnerability? That's all I'm saying. Am I still strong if I crack? Am I still strong if I cry? Am I still strong if I say, y'all can't do it today? Am I still strong if I say, you know what, I need a break? No. I don't know if I'm still strong. So I have to internalize. I have to be here 24/7, and I'm going to be the internal nurturer. I'm not going to let the community down. I'm going to carry my brothers and sisters on my back, and I'm gonna be like that first poster. So I have to be in spaces where I can have both. And a lot of times those spaces are facilitated by people who look like us, but that doesn't mean that people who don't look like us can't be instrumental in helping us move policies forward so that we all can move past these stereotypes and so that we all can have healthy outcomes, because right now we don't.
Right.
Do you think, Jezebel? Yes.
Vacation Black girls.
So yes, so Dr. Powell is bringing up the Jezebel. So this happens a lot, when and we actually see this with law enforcement as well, when they arrest children and they go, oh, well, we thought they were older, like what? When we sexualize young girls, like what? That is a child. That is a child. So yes, I do think it happens. And we also see it, when people talk about when Black girls go missing, nobody ever talks about missing Black girls, or when Black girls have die from violent outcomes. We don't say their names as much. We don't see their names as much because we're seen as expendable. If you disappear, something happened to you, then you must have been doing something, that caused your early demise. So I definitely agree with that. Okay, so those are the stereotypes I wanted to cover. I wanted to link it all to the Superwoman, and I wanted to just remind everybody that we're human. We're human. So the reason that this is near and dear to me is because I see mothers every day in the hospital who have adverse outcomes. Every day, whose baby is born too soon and whose baby may not survive. I see mothers every day who have the opportunity to be in front of providers and not have this outcome, and providers didn't take the extra step. So for me, it's really important that women of color hear that part of our strength is in taking care of ourselves. Myself too. Part of my strength is not waiting 2 years to get an annual exam. Me too. Part of our strength is in taking care of ourselves. So I don't want to see you guys in the hospitals. I don't want to see your babies in the hospitals. I want you to be here. And while we're on the subject of these stereotypes, there was a study a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned this to Dr. Dawn. Somebody actually sent it to me, and it talked about how since COVID happened, that we have decreased rates of preterm birth in the ICU nursery. And that the thought was because women were staying home and they weren't as stressed and they weren't going into preterm labor. And that's why we have these decreased rates. Well, the study was done in the UK. So most of the data was from the UK, which is very different than being in the USA. But the thing I want to emphasize about Black women is we have to deal with intersectional stresses all the time. So even if I stay home because of COVID, it doesn't necessarily remove me from the stressors that are part of my lived experience. I'm still dealing with my job issues, just through Zoom. I'm still dealing with microaggressions, just in a different way. I'm still shouldering the weight of the world, even if I'm at home. Actually, I might have been doing more at home. Now I'm at home, at least when I was going out, I didn't have to worry about home till I came back home. But now I'm home all the time, so I'm doing even more. And so it may or may not, all of my friends are stressed out. So I don't necessarily know that they are less stressed at home. They may be more stressed, but we are dealing with the intersection for the lived experience of Black women of race, gender, and the SES status. Those things are in play all the time. Those things are in play all the time. And we don't necessarily change those things by us physically being at home. Those things change by policies that need to be dismantled, policies that involve systemic racism that need to be dismantled, and teaching people about implicit bias, these stereotypes. So when you see a coworker who says no to you because they just couldn't do it, they might not be able to do it. They just can't do it. They cannot do it. You have to be okay with that. Or are you looking at them because you expect them to be the nurturer and you didn't expect them to say no?
Mm-hmm. You better say that.
Who were you asking, me, or did you think Jemima was in here? Because sometimes we have to say no.
Right.
Sometimes we have to make our families a priority too. We have to make ourselves, and even if we don't, we might just need to say no because you know what, today I just need to sit in quiet. Exactly. So ask yourself what that's about. When you see someone who has expressed frustration and you go and you report to HR that they are angry or they were seen overly emotional or they seem like they were acting out of character, what do you really mean? That you met Sapphire today? Did they really act out of character? Or were you not just used to them actually expressing frustration? If you actually have a coworker that expressed frustration and you never see, just be happy because they finally got comfortable enough. Because
exactly.
Like, you know what? We broke a barrier today. Yes. She finally got comfortable enough to say, you know what, this is not okay. Right. This is not okay. It's not okay for y'all to have Fox News every time I walk in here. Whatever you need to say. So you need to actually be okay because that person actually has some level of comfort with you that they probably didn't have before. And then the last thing is for Jezebel, when we're making narratives about people who are in their lived experience, you don't know what circumstances have brought that person to that experience. And we need to make sure we are meeting people where they are and giving them resources so they can get to the next step. So these stereotypes are all still here. It's 2020 and they're still here. I think they're going to continue to be here, but we don't have to be affected by them. And if we do find ourselves affected by them, we need to be triggered to do something about it. And even for the Mammy, remember Superwoman, we internalize that. So even if nobody else is asking us to do that, we ourselves tell ourselves we have to do it. We feel like we have to deny self to do all of these things for all of these people all the time.
Outstanding, Dr. Terri. My God.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Outstanding. Any questions out there? Because I have a couple. I want to make sure. So as they think about their questions, wonderful analysis of each caricature, right? That has been exploited in our society about how the Black woman should be throughout our history. And like you're saying, it never changes. So it starts with us.
Yes.
How we present ourselves, how we deal with these things, right? And I see that strong connection all the time to mental health. Of course, other parts of health, but especially the mental health. Representation of how I should see myself based upon how my daddy treat me, how my boyfriend treat me, how I treat my own, so it's different levels. That's true. Should we surround ourselves by people who look at us differently in a positive light? Should we try to find different areas where we have strength qualities in that we're good at to help keep, increase our self-worth, our self-confidence? Do
Yes.
we use, scripture, prayers, meditation to find our connection with the person or the being who created us, our spirituality, to understand that we are justified, we are worthy, and we are human, and we're not perfect. So even our maker has made us imperfect, so we should not have those expectations on ourselves. And should we also teach that to our daughters and our sons? And it's okay to see mommy cry. It's okay to see mommy upset. And we're still going to have a conversation of why I express those emotions.
Yes.
And I'm not going to keep that from you. I'm not going to cry or not cry in front of my children. That's another common themality that I also see commonly in my practice. And then it stirs up, it becomes something different.
Yeah. So I love that. So I would start, you reminded me when you were talking, one of the things the paper emphasizes that those of us who say, those of us who are strong Black women who say, you know what, I don't hold any punches. They already know. Don't come by me. I'm going to let you know. That is a uber protective mechanism. And beneath the surface of that uber protective mechanism is actually often some insecurity and some challenges with self-esteem, because you don't really feel like you can be who you are. You don't have a space to be who you are. So I'll start with the, oh, hey, Dr. Jared.
Dr. J.
I'll start with the first thing she said. So one, we have to recognize that we are so good at being in toxic spaces that we don't even realize that we're in a toxic space.
We realize it. It's our sense of normalcy.
We think it's normal. We're so good at wearing the mask, right? Mm-hmm. So we think it's normal. Sometimes my husband will say, okay, why are you even putting yourself through that? Like, why are you going? They don't want you there, and that's their loss. You don't need to be there. I'm like, no, I'm going there. I want them to like you and like me. I need to go there. No, he's like, you don't. He's very, look, you can take me or leave me. I don't really, like, it's your loss, not mine. And so I'm still developing that. So the first thing is, hey, Dr. Erica. So the first thing is we have to recognize when we're in toxic spaces. We have to recognize we're in toxic spaces. And when you are in a toxic space, you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I in this space? What is it that I need to get in this space? Why am I seeking validation here? Mm-hmm. What is it that I'm needing? And you may need to speak with a therapist to help you unpack that. So I think that's the first thing I say is if there's a stigma about mental health in communities of color. And it is because we're very private about our business. I don't want to talk to anybody about my business. Okay, well, you better talk to somebody about your business for your business. You in the hospital, we all know your business. And so we have to recognize you're in a toxic space. Recognize that our mental health is important, and recognize you may need somebody to unpack it, because our defense mechanisms are so good, we can't even get through our own layers sometimes.
Can you say that again, please?
Our defense mechanisms are so good, we cannot get through our own layers. We can't get through our own layers. I was talking to another friend, a doctor friend, and about how I like to snooze. And she's very big on not snoozing and getting up and doing the first thing and when you snooze, you break the first promise to yourself. And I said, no, snoozing to me is self-care, because I get to sleep late and protect myself from the world an extra 10 to 15 minutes. She was like, okay, if you have really rational, like your rationalization. Like, okay, we're gonna need extra time. Okay, so the first thing, recognize when you're in a toxic space, and that we may need to unravel that with a therapist or a psychologist or somebody else. And then I just want to pick up on what Dr. Don said. So once we recognize we're in a toxic space and why it's toxic and what our triggers are, then we do need to be around people who can affirm us, and not just the yes people. So I used to have a friend who, unfortunately, she's passed now, but she was my one girlfriend who would be like, girl, no, you're wrong. That's not okay. That is not okay. You need to cry it out and come back. So you have some people who are constantly, yay. They keep you on the pedestal for that superwoman. Mm-hmm. But you need somebody who's going to say, girl, you need to come down. Just because you've been in dysfunction for a long time. That's right, Patricia. That's right. Your dysfunction does not make, girl, yeah, I understand, girl. So you have people that keep you on a pedestal, and people who will not let you take off your cape. Mm-hmm. You have to take off your cape sometime and see your skin. I mean, you have to take your mask off. So yes, if you want to be around, you need to seek people who can validate you, tell you you're worthy, and that it's okay to say no. So I have friends who say, girl, it's fine that you said no. Even when Dr. Dunn and I were talking about this episode, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But afterwards, she was like, how about be still? I was like, what? She was like, be still. It was so awkward because I was like, no, I'm not going to be still. That's very uncomfortable. I'm not going to be still. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. So Nan was saying that in Puerto Rico, she faced the same issues being mixed. Exactly. Yes, I think any person of color, I agree. I think this is a very separate, this race, gender coded language where strength is a plus and a minus. I think everybody who is a person of color has to navigate that differently. That doesn't mean that others will not, others who are not of color don't have to multitask and they don't have these issues, but often others have resources in place that persons of color have not had in place. So we don't have those things in place. So because we don't have those things in place, we can't navigate some of those spaces as effectively. So the role strain, the actual role strain begins to be a heavy burden to bear. Role, R-O-L-E, strain of carrying all these different manifestations of ourselves begins to be a bit much to bear when we don't have appropriate support mechanisms in place. And we may not have them. You know, if we're used to being all things to every people, we may not have support mechanisms in place. It used to being the eternal nurturer. So it starts with that. So recognize if you're in a toxic environment.
Sorry about that, Dr. Terry.
That's okay, boo. I was just talking to Nan. So recognize when a toxic environment. Recognize that we need to be around people who can tell us we are worthy. And then we need to figure out, well, what are the things that are good self-care for me? So Dr. Dawn mentioned prayer. She mentioned meditation. She mentioned yoga. You know, it may be music. It may be exercise. With exercise, not for me. I don't like sweating. I don't like being out of breath. So, but whatever it is for you, then you need to find more moments of joy for you. Sometimes you need to get mental health. That's right. So whatever gives you joy, and it'll be different for different people. Dr. Dawn, I was saying that one issue with those of us who've embodied this strong Black woman eternal nurturer is when we're telling people to find spaces to be vulnerable and get help, we find that because we taught everybody we don't need help, we don't have anybody around us to help us. So exactly. We have to be okay asking for help too. When my mother-in-law died, both of my best friends said, hey, do you need anything? I never ask for help. I'm the giver. I will not ask for help ever. Even though I'm telling y'all to, I won't. I'm still working on it. I probably got a therapist out here right now who will call me. But anyway, so I'm still working on it. But when she died, they both said, what do you need? I said, nothing. They both showed up the day of the funeral, you know, to do the food and everything. I'm like, oh, you guys came. They were like, we knew you were gonna say no. But you know you needed help. So I did need help. So anyway, we have to be okay asking for help. And some of us don't know how to ask for help, but just be okay with saying no first. Just start saying no to people and yes to yourself. And then you can work on asking for help. I think Dr. Dawn's frozen again. Okay, do we have any questions? I can't see if we have any questions. Dr. Dawn, I think you're frozen. Okay, so hopefully she'll come back. Hopefully you guys learned something. We wanted to talk about these stereotypes in the media, and I especially want to link them to the superwoman that's manifested today and how it can manifest in health problems for us, and encourage everyone just to figure out a way to do it differently. Figure out a way to do it differently because we need you guys to be here. Is she back? Okay, she's not back. Okay. All right. Well, then while I'm wrapping up, I'm Dr. Terri, MD. I'm a board certified neonatologist and pediatrician. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, but I also practice in Las Vegas, South Carolina, and Georgia. My personal interest is giving families the gift of hope, giving women the gift of hope, giving pre-med students the gift of hope. And I do that through webinar speaking, as well as my books and writing. I have a special interest in health disparities and improving outcomes for everyone. And I'm particularly interested in improving outcomes for Black women who are 2 times more likely to have a preterm birth and 4 to 5 times more likely in the U.S. to have an adverse maternal outcome. And so I have a passion for implicit bias. I have a passion for empowering women, but especially for Black women, I have a passion for letting us know that we have to remember that we're human. And when we say we're strong Black women, that there is strength in vulnerability. There's strength in vulnerability. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm at Dr. Terri, MD, www.drterrymd. And I don't know if I don't see any questions. I'll just wait for Dr. Don. So you guys, where I get strength from is in my prayer room. So that is that's where I'm streaming from now. This is my little prayer closet. And I have got a lot of strength in this room. I've had a lot of tears in this room. And I'm here to say that vulnerability and strength is beautiful. So I don't know. Should we sign off? I don't know. Should we sign off? Somebody let me know. Can y'all see Dr. Don? I can't tell. I think I'm going to sign out.
All right.
Should I sign? I said, okay, I don't know if we should sign out or not. Did y'all see Dr. Don? I don't know. Okay, but I did a wrap up. I told everybody there's vulnerability and strength. I have a passion for health disparities and making sure we all continue to remain healthy. And I just want us to know that there's strength and vulnerability.
Dr. Terri.
We didn't come by these coping mechanisms by accident. We see them in the media all the time, and they started in slavery. So they're still here with us.
Dr. Terri, I know it's over our. Listen, one other question I have. So basically what you're saying, because I know I missed some of it, and I apologize if you already said it, but we really need to start having these conversations openly with other Black women, white women with Black women, Black men with white women, and gender, it should be not just gender specific as well, right?
Yes,
so
it has to be. It has to be.
We have to. So how does that look, Dr. Terri? Can you give us some examples of how we can go about having these pivotal conversations so that we can change the narrative of what we should be looking like and people accepting us and respecting us as who we are?
So I think first, to change the narrative, we have to have safe spaces for women of color to be vulnerable, right? And once we are okay being vulnerable and speaking our truth, we're empowered to share our truth with those who want to be allies and walk alongside of us. I think it's really, I've done this a couple of ways. So I've done a couple of I call it real talk spaces where it's for multiple races and multiple genders, but people of color don't always feel safe to be vulnerable in mixed company, right? They've tried that before and they've been let down. There's mistrust, so you have to build a certain amount of trust first. So I think the first thing to do is to make sure the people who are extending the olive branch feel comfortable in their vulnerability to share their truth. And first, they got to be comfortable to share it, usually with other like-minded individuals, because you're bearing yourself when you come out in front of others to share your truth. Yeah. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I think that now in the United States, this is a great and pivotal time to have these real conversations across race and gender to address some of these implicit biases, subconscious and unconscious, and the roots of slavery. So this is the perfect storm to have these conversations. So I think after Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, certainly this is the first time I've seen so much across the U.S., every state, multiple races, men and women, and the youth. I mean, the youth, I actually think wants to bring it home. So I think once we know that we're safe, I actually have a girlfriend who does, she doesn't call it, she calls it disparity talks. She calls it disparity talks. Mm-hmm. Because some people, if you say, let's talk about racism, they won't come. So the all is a bad word. So word. So, but I just call it real talk. You know, let's have a real, today we're going to just talk about, we're going to have a real talk about why health conditions for Black women are so bad. And then just allow it, you know, to be an open conversation. Next, people what they think. So those of us who feel marginalized have to be willing to listen. And those of us who want to learn have to be willing to listen too. But not necessarily. A lot of people will say, you know, I'm tired of teaching people. They need to go read a book. I'm tired of teaching people. I can't. But I think in this movement, if you have people that are vulnerable enough to say, hey, I learned some things in my childhood, in my youth, that I'm understanding now, possibly racist or possibly sexist or possibly misogynist. I just never knew. I think if people reach my olive branch, I want to be at the table with that person. I want to be at the table with the person who's coming to the table with me. In fact, okay, let me show you something, Dr. Dawn. Let me see if I can get it.
Yes, please.
You just reminded me. I'm going to see if I can get it.
Okay. While you're working on that, I just want to share with everyone. I was actually a part of a wonderful movement, a couple actually, but one recently. It was called Share the Medical Mic, and this actually was a movement that started, I believe, back in June by celebrities. And it was just share the mic. And basically it was an Instagram movement where white women who had a large following actually shared the mic with, or shared, they basically gave their internet platform to Black women. And upon that movement, and it wasn't exchange, it was just Black women took over their entire Instagram and was able to post about their experiences. And for us, it was about posting our experiences as being a Black female doctor in the arena of how we practice, and the obstacles that we had to overcome, the things that are still going on. We talked about health disparities, we talked about racism, we talked about sexualism, we talked about a variety of things. And I think that more movements like that need to happen, where we have, because we've always had powerful voices. We've never whispered. You know, it's just that we need platforms in order to vocalize so people can listen and hear and understand that, yes, we are so much similar as far as our makeup, but our experiences and how we're raised and where we come from are completely different. So you cannot make that assumption. Exactly. And I think that, you know, and this movement allowed that. People really see who that person is. And so, and how we were able to accomplish these feats, you know, overcome these feats to get to where we are. And I thought it was just a powerful movement. I really want to see this widespread. I mean, it doesn't have to be just career related. You know, I want to share the medical mic, or share the mic with people from Flint, so you can understand where I'm from and the people that are there now and how they grew up and what they're dealing with. I mean, you know, I think that is so important. And so I was very moved by that movement. And I really want to get on board with something like that.
I love that. I do think, I was just sharing with someone, because I have conversations with a lot of people who are still hurting, who are exhausted from the collaborative discussions. But I do think it's important if you have someone who has power, influence, and a platform, who is willing to reach out and collaborate and be an ally, because we will not be able to make change if we stay in our silos. So I think those of us who are comfortable enough in our truth to be vulnerable, if we can, and we have an ally who's willing to meet us there, then yeah, we definitely need to do that. Okay, so you made me think of, can you hear me okay? All right, so can you guys see this?
Oh, yes, here.
Okay, do you see this, Dr. Dawn?
I can. I'm just going to put you on the screen so you can have full screen. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just, did it go full screen?
So,
see you, hey, girl. All right.
Okay, now we can see her better. Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Dawn triggered something for me, because she said she was asking, how can we get there? And I said, if you have someone who realized that, hey, I had some behaviors that were a problem, I want to improve those behaviors, we should be willing to sit down and talk to them. So, you guys, my daughter will be 23 in November. She'll be 23 in November. I had her when I was in training, a neonatology fellow. I was learning how to be a neonatologist. I had her during my first year of training. One of my favorite nurses, one of my favorite nurses, bought this at a flea market on a trade at a trade show, driving back to Dallas. She had gone somewhere for the weekend, and she was so excited that I was having my first baby that she bought this for me and brought it to the hospital and gave it to me.
I'm sorry to get back on when you said that. I'm sorry. What?
And she was Caucasian. You guys, this was 1997. So when I say sometimes people literally do not know. Sometimes people know, but sometimes people don't know. Y'all, I was on call when she brought it. I said thank you because she was so excited.
Yeah.
I went to the call room and I looked at the doll and I just cried. And for those of you who have been on since the beginning, when we say the Mammy stereotype, this is like a Mammy doll. She has these red lips, black skin, and white eyes. My nurse did not know that, and she wanted my new baby girl to have it. So I just put it in the call room. I left it on the bed. The very next day, I don't even know if she's listening. One of my other good friends, a co-resident, came into the call room. She was a woman of color. I'm not going to say her name, but she's a pediatrician here in Dallas. She saw it in the call room and came out and said, "Who gave that to you? Who do we need to fight?"
Right.
She said, "Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you say anything?" And I mean, I was a trainee. It's 97. What am I going to say? This is a racist doll. Why would you want me to give this to my child? I kept it the whole time. So if you come to my house now in the prayer room, she's here. So she's 23, just like my daughter. I never gave it to my daughter, obviously.
Right.
It was just a reminder to me of how far we have to go. So when I think about the conversations we're having now, like I'm not in touch with that nurse anymore. I'm not at that hospital anymore. I just wish I would have said something, because who knows? She may have given another resident of color a doll like that too and just never knew. Like I missed an opportunity to educate her. So yeah, when people come to me at the table and they cry, or I say something in the talk, they're like, Dr. Kincade, I've done that before. I've made judgments. I'm happy to talk to them because I want to talk to people who want to be part of the solution. Some people's minds are never going to change. There are many, many people who we can change. And I agree, Dr. Dawn, we have to collaborate with people who have the influence and power on those platforms while we're building our own so that we can get the message out. So stronger together. We're stronger together. So you triggered that because I thought every time I look at the doll, I think, oh, if I could see it today.
Yes.
So
I pray that she's looking at this today. And I really pray that
the doll is like, why did you keep it?
And sometimes we have to keep those things in order to remind us. And yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, I have to, but she really did genuinely care for me.
Right.
So proud.
Yes.
Like a big one, not even a little one. I mean, the doll's like 2 feet.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about this, because I actually grew up, I went to school. I was the only Black kid in my high school.
Oh,
and yes. The only Black kid let me rephrase that. Not in my high school, in my high school classes. My school was 10% Black. But I was the only one in all of my classes. And so, it was interesting. So the AP classes, I was a smart Black girl. So I'm dealing with that from my Black friends, the smart Black girl, which they were cool, but still whispering, and then dealing with, well, can you, come on, Dawn, and this, that, and the other, and let's touch your hair, and talk about my hair, and things like that. And so when that happened, I went home, and my mom was like, "Don't you ever let anybody, don't you ever let anybody touch your hair." Like, are you crazy? Like, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? And at that moment, my mom knew that she had to come at me a different way and start having these conversations. Like, this is not okay. This is not, and so when I'm going back to my white friends and talking about this, they had no idea.
They had no idea.
They were so interested, invested in me because they had never asked any Black girl these questions. So they've been in your face, and but I do believe that some people just are ignorant of the fact of what these actually mean to our Yes, our experience, our culture.
Yes, I mean, I get inboxes from a lot of people who's like, you know what, I finally get it. I didn't get it before, but now I get it. And I mean, and for me, that's worth it. I mean, because we didn't get here, we did not make the gains we made just with people of color in this fight. So I mean, we got a lot more work to do, but we certainly have come far. So, and we have a lot of people on the line with us. So,
Dr. Terri. Thank you, Dr. Terri. Listen, I want you to see some of these comments, Dr. Terri. Terri, you've actually made some wonderful points that people are going to remember. One is you cannot pour from an empty cup.
That's right, Latricia.
Yes. Sora Janine says, thank you. This was excellent. Can you see these comments, Dr. Terri?
Hey, boo. Yes, Dr. Erica. I couldn't see comments. I was like, is it just me and Dr. Dawn on?
I know, you held it down. I think someone said that too.
Oh, you she was wondering about this prayer closet. Okay. Yay!
So one final question. We promise we don't let you go. You just so welcome.
I'm getting some help. She's like, what are you actively doing to practice self-care? Actually helping delicate girl. Look, Latricia, I'm gonna do as I say, do as I say, not as I'm doing. I mean, girl, I need help, girl. It's rough. Girl, I retired from a job just to start working in another, say, 2 weeks a month. I mean, I have issues. That's a webinar that's a Dr. Dawn for another day.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna help each other here, though, Dr. Terri. We're gonna help each other because that's what we're obligated to do. That.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, we have to.
We have to, especially women who are physicians or in lawyers. I mean, these roles that require a lot of our energy, our intelligence, our mental and physical health.
We have
to.
Yeah, we
have to. Because our degree of being a type A personality will keep going. And it'll start becoming our own sense of normalcy. And we don't necessarily have to be the Jezebel or the Jezebel, or the girl, the hot girl in the teeth, whatever. I mean, it's just it becomes a part of who we are, and that's not necessarily healthy either.
Correct. I mean, we can't separate it anymore because it's who we are. No,
right.
Yeah. I agree.
So thank you so much, Dr. Terri, for sharing this round table. Thank you for holding it down with my internet.
Y'all still here? Okay.
But when you speak, Dr. Terri, people listen, and that's your natural gift. We really appreciate you. Thank you for being vulnerable. It's not a weak thing. It's actually a very strong thing to do, and it's how you connect with a lot of us. And now we're able to connect with the people that we need to connect with as well. So thanks for mirroring that for us. It's important that we have these important conversations, especially as Black women who have been forecasted in media for centuries. And it's important that we change this narrative and start, again, getting with allies who have, it's okay, y'all, get with allies. Listen, it's okay. Cross the barrier and connect with other minorities, connect with white women, and share your story. Listen, that's how we're going to change the game. That's how we're going to change the game. You just got to make sure they're allies.
I agree. I just think, I know we got to go. Just like recently, Viola Davis did that whole, spread, and she talked about how she regretted being in the Help. Well, I thought she was amazing in the movie, but she felt like it was a missed opportunity to really advocate for the story of the Help, because the Skeeter is the star of the movie. It's not really the maids. And that if she had to do it over again, she wouldn't do that role unless she did it differently. And that was a glamorized nurturer, right?
Yeah.
Here, you was kind, you was smart, you was important. They were going to work every day, leaving their kids. And she just felt like it didn't give enough of the sacrifices those women made because they glamorized the other person. I thought, wow, that's really big for her to say that. I'm like, you got nominated for Oscar, it should be okay. She's like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
So we have to speak our truth. We have to speak our truth.
We do.
We become part of the false narrative too,
That's right. Exactly. And we're going to leave on that. Dr. Terri, thank you. I know we took enough time from you. Thank your family for spending time with us this evening. We really appreciate you. And thank you so much for just being here. Listen, I have to have you back sooner than later, Dr. Terri, because we have a lot that we can talk about. So we thought about doing something at least quarterly. At least, look, no lie.
We have some good topics. Okay. All right.
Wonderful. Appreciate you, Dr. Terri. Thank you. And you all share this with everybody you know. Thanks so much for coming live with Dr. Dawn. You have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I got no rules, I count them.
Hi, I'm Dr. Celeste, your board-certified family medicine physician specializing in urgent care. We are doing drive-through rapid antibody testing for COVID-19 with follow-up PCR testing when needed. We're doing this at the office of Dr. 𝘕𝗺𝗺𝗏 Skin Wellness Centers of Alabama, 1920 Huntington Road, 35209. We're doing this Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays from 8 until 12. It's $125 for the assessment as well as the test with Dr. Celeste. Contact us for an appointment at drcelestec19.com. Thank you.